Hello, Broncos country. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for today's edition of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up today, we'll hear from head coach Nathaniel Hackett and all three coordinators as they spoke to the media. Plus, ESPN's Houston Texans reporter DJ Bien-Aime joins the show to give a Texans perspective of this matchup. All that and more coming up. Just 3 days now until the Broncos are back at Empower Field at Mile High for their home opener. And head coach Nathaniel Hackett cannot wait to get back in front of Broncos country.
Oh, there's nothing like home, just being at home, home field advantage, having the crowd on your side. It was definitely a hostile environment last week, and, we're so excited to be around in front of our fans and hear them cheer and get excited for all the guys.
Unfortunately, the team will be without one of their captains in this home opener. We learned yesterday that safety Justin Simmons was placed on injured reserve and will miss at least 4 weeks with a quad injury. Coach Hackett announced today that Caden Stearns will start in Simmons' place, and both Coach Hackett and defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero detailed what they like about Stearns' game.
We're excited for him. It's going to be a great opportunity for him, and he's got a lot of good game experience, so we're excited.
Standard is always a standard, and the thing we try to preach to you guys is you're only one play away from being up, and so everybody's got to stay ready. And one thing we're always harping on the guys about is that no matter what your role is, everybody's got to prepare to play. So Caden's done a good job of that, and so I feel confident he'll do a hell of a job in there.
And special teams coordinator Dwayne Stukes chimed in and discussed how this changes Stearns' role on special teams.
Obviously, we use Caden as a four-core special teams player. Once he starts playing defense, you don't want to wear Caden down, and now you're going down to, no disrespect to the other safety, but now you keep going down the line and you're going down the line. Obviously, he's starting for a reason, so we will take care of him as far as special teams go. Absolutely.
Offensive coordinator Justin Simmons also addressed the media today and discussed how the game went operationally, and he talked about Jerry Jeudy's performance on Monday night.
I thought, with the amount of plays that we had and the double calls and just handling everything, and I thought it was as smooth as it could be as far as the first game with a new quarterback and new system and a loud environment. So there's a lot of good to build off of in that game, especially with, those guys really buying in everything. But I was proud of those guys and how they fought. And we're looking forward to this week. I'm really proud of Jerry and how he responded to everything. This offseason, he knew that this was going to be a big one for him, especially losing Tim. So I think he stepped up to the plate, did a really good job for us, and somebody we're going to lean on.
And as we discussed on this show a few times this week, the defense came out in the second half versus Seahawks and held them to just 34 yards. Defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero discussed what changed at halftime for the defense and how they can use that momentum heading into this weekend.
Maybe a big part of it is probably just the game speed, getting used to playing football again at full speed and tackling and all that stuff. Things happening a lot faster. I always think there's a big jump in terms of the speed of the game. Even if you play in preseason games, it goes so much faster than a regular season game. Same thing when you get to the playoffs. The game just gets faster and faster. And so I think the guys just did a good job of in the second half of just reacting better. They got their feet under them, felt more comfortable. We didn't really do a lot adjustment-wise. I just think, we cleaned up some things, and then the guys did a good job of executing.
And as we wrap up the top news of the day, let's take a look at today's injury report. Guard Quinn Miners, wide receiver KJ Hamler, and inside linebacker Josie Jewell all did not participate at practice today. Outside linebacker Randy Gregory, cornerback K'Wan Williams, and defensive lineman Deshaun Williams were limited, and offensive lineman Billy Turner was a full participant. Coach Hackett said if Quinn Miners doesn't start at right guard, it will be Graham Glasgow who starts in his place. Now let's welcome ESPN's Houston Texans reporter DJ Bien-Aime to the show to take a look at this matchup from the Texans' perspective. DJ, appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
How are things going down there in Houston?
It's going great. I moved out here a couple months ago, and
nice.
when I moved, my allergies were trying to take me out, but they've calmed down since. So everything's good.
Well, I'm glad you got that figured out. What a way for you guys to kick off the season with a tie to the Colts. Especially it being an AFC South rival.
Yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't have got to that point where it resulted in a tie when they were up 17 in the fourth. But I guess, you can admit it's better to tie than to lose completely a 17-point lead.
Well, just a couple days now until the team heads here to Denver for week 2 to face the Broncos. DJ, what excites you most about this matchup?
For me personally, I do want to see what the Texans defensive backs, the secondary, can do against the Broncos receiving core. I've always been high on Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and I'm really high on the Texas secondary led by Jalen Petrie and Derek Stingley and Steven Nelson and Desmond King and Jonathan Owens. They played really well, even though the numbers against Matt Ryan said they allowed over 300 yards passing, but that was a combination of fatigue along with some of them and beat on some inside routes, and some of that was on linebackers too. But again, when it was time for them to make some plays, they were able to make some plays. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to be able to do against a quarterback that can extend, push the ball down the field. I want to see if Steven Nelson, Derek Stingley, those boys, will they be ready to handle those down the field shots.
Well, DJ, looking at this Texans offense, what did you think about their performance against the Colts that you really want to see them continue to build on as they come here and face this Denver defense?
Yeah, I think it was solid. Obviously, the second and third quarters where they scored most of their points, but the fourth quarter they scored 0 points. I believe had like around 13 yards total, and obviously the first quarter they couldn't get much going. So you want them to be able to capitalize and carry that energy from the second and third quarter on to spread that out for an entire game, so you don't go into these droughts. Because I believe the offense at least gets a couple of first downs, at least gets maybe a field goal in that fourth quarter, the game's over, because again, it's complimentary football. You want, even though the defense did give up 17 points, a lot of it came because the offense couldn't stay on the field. So if they can carry that momentum from the second and third quarter, where it was able to put up 20 points and be able to get some more points here and there in the first and fourth, that'd be a pretty efficient offense.
And for quarterback Davis Mills, what did you think about his performance on Sunday?
I feel like it was extremely solid. When you can have a pass rate of over 100, pass for 240, and have 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, that's extremely solid. I just want to see him when there's chaos around him a little bit. Can he still make the throws that are required? When it's time to push the ball outside the numbers on a consistent basis, even when the pocket's a little bit muddy, can he still execute those throws? Because there were some plays where he missed, whether it's to Cooks, or it was to Nico Collins, or even to Conley. He missed on a couple occasions. But you just want to see him when things get a little bit muddy and you need to make a play. Can he make that play? Because he has the arm strength required to be able to make those throws. Can he have the accuracy, the touch, the anticipation to get the ball out there when needed?
Well, I know head coach Lovie Smith said that the plan this week was to get running back Dameon Pierce more carries moving forward. DJ, what do you think the plan might look like for him on Sunday? I mean, did you like what you saw from him against the Colts last Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I like because his longest run was an 8-yard run. If he doesn't get tackled by his shoestring, he could have broke that for 15, maybe 20 yards. He just couldn't get into that rhythm. You want to see him improve a little bit when it comes to pass blocking, but the talent is there, and they've already admitted they want to keep him featured. They want to give him the ball more. So I could see a scenario where he gets at least 15 touches this week.
Well, despite the Broncos not getting the win in week 1, DJ, you talked on this a little bit earlier. The offense here really seemed to move the ball pretty well. And Russell Wilson, he threw for over 300 yards. I know you touched on the Texans secondary, but maybe who else on this Texans defense do you think needs to step up? And how do you think they'll fare going up against Russell?
I think Jerry Hughes, who was able to tap into the fountain of youth last week, he had 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and an interception. He had a dominant day. If the Texans were able to pull out that win, he might have got Defensive Player of the Week. And then you add in on the other side, defensive end Jonathan Gennard. If those 2 bookend pass rushers can continue to create pressure and force Russell Wilson left and make him have to hold on to the ball and make him have to live in the playmaking mode versus staying on schedule with the occasional playmaking mode, then attacking the Texans, they'll be able to have a really good shot. But again, that's a lot easier said than done.
Well, like you said, you're interested to see what this Texans secondary can do going up against this Broncos wide receiver core. So do you think that group's kind of the matchup to watch, or who are you going to be looking for?
I think the matchup to watch, I think for a casual fan, is going to be the Texans secondary versus the Broncos passing attack. But I do think the game will come down to the trenches on both sides, offense versus defense, defense versus offense, both ways, because both of them want to run the ball. And the Texans, their offense really is dictated on, can we run the ball efficiently? Because they don't want to have Davis Mills throwing the ball 45, 50 times. Most teams don't actually, but they really don't want Davis Mills to have to win the game with his arm only. They wanted to be balanced so he can play off of that. And then when it's time to make throws, then he can make those throws and he'll be in advantageous situations. The run game is going. So I think the key matchup for the Texans is they're running their offensive line versus the Broncos defensive line, who came alive in that second half against the Seahawks.
All right, DJ, last but not least, do you have a game prediction? Who do you think's going to win this one?
Oh, no, I think the Broncos probably win this one. I do think that it'll be closer than what the spread is. Because the spread says 11.5 or 10.5, whatever the number is. I don't think that it'll be a double-digit victory because they're both, the Broncos are still, working out their kinks. They still have a lot of new moving pieces, new head coach, new OC, new DC, new quarterback. Texans a little continuity. So I think that as long as the defense comes to play, they'll be able to keep it a game. But I do think the Broncos do pull it out.
Well, I hope you're right and that we get the win, DJ. Looking forward to this game on Sunday. I really appreciate your time and your insight.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in today and every day. I hope you'll meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network in YouTube tomorrow evening for another episode as we preview this matchup on Sunday.